Welcome, Jake, to my YouTube channel. Super excited to have you here. I know your background it shows like you're in the middle of nowhere in the universe, but why don't you explain where you currently are right now and what you do for your career?
Currently based in Singapore, and then currently I work as a technical support engineer in a US tech company. I'm from Korea, and then I started my career as like software data engineer, and then I wanted to explore more on Southeast Asia market or like for global products in some sense. So I wanted to kind of explore different markets. That's why I moved to Singapore for Indonesia-based e-commerce startup. And then now I'm currently working in a bigger US tech company based in US, but working for Singapore office.
I would say it's really interesting because in Singapore, there's different types of companies that come from like Australia, from the US, Singapore, from China, et cetera, right? When you were, I guess, looking for a job, were you looking for a specific company or you just knew that you wanted to work in tech?
Already working in tech, and then I didn't particularly look for a company in Singapore. I was quite open,
Mm.
but it came to be that there was an opening in Singapore for the company that I was applying for, and then I thought Singapore was a pretty good opportunity and a lot of different perspectives, so I decided to join.
Would you say like Korean work-life balance is harder or is Singapore's work-life balance harder?
Oh, I think that really depends on the company itself, because like the company that I worked for in Korea was actually very flexible and balanced in a lot of different sense. So we actually had a lot of parents having taking care of kids because they were flexible to go pick up the kids or go to hospital whenever they wanted, as long as they got their job done, they didn't care. In contrast, my first Singapore company was actually a lot more demanding in time and effort. Like, so I used to work a lot of 9 to 9. So it really depends on the company context, I think, rather than country.
What's really telling too is like looking at the co-founders, maybe their background, their work style, and like if they have kids or not. Because I feel
Yeah,
like when you're a parent, you
yeah,
usually tend to be a little bit more balanced. But then I
yeah,
feel like if you're a young founder and you're like, I must make it, you're kind of like burning the midnight oil. And you're
yeah.
working for someone like that, right?
So it really depends on what kind of tone and culture that the founders or the early members are setting in. I think that has a huge influence on the culture. Yeah.
Agree. I think there's a lot of interest, especially from software engineers who might not live in Singapore, but they want to work in Singapore. What advice do you have for them get their foot into the door? Do you think a lot of companies, startups, or big tech are hiring for software engineers right now? Like, what does the job market look like? How should they get their foot in the door?
So for a software company, I think there's two big division and part, which are product department and then go-to-market department. There are engineers in go-to-market department, not necessarily software engineer, but for example, like me, technical support engineer, solution engineer, customer engineer. These are go-to-market department. And
Okay.
then there's a front-end engineer, back-end engineer, data engineer, who are more on the product side. I think there are a lot more opportunity on the go-to-market side in Singapore
Okay.
because Singapore has a lot more go-to-market organization for APAC or Asian Pacific in general from a lot of big tech company around the world.
Mm.
But in the contrast, I think there's less or limited open position or opportunity on the product side roles because there's less company here who have based their product teams here, and wage competitiveness wise is more expensive here. So for companies to hire here, cost wise kind of make less sense in that way. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then for go to market, does that mean also just basically engineers like solving specific product issues or like feature issues for that market segmentation, right?
Basically, what I or similar role does is that usually we have a technical product that user has to either implement or execute in their terms. And
Mhm.
then there are a lot of, depending on the complexity of the product, they do have to go through a lot of, nitty-gritty technical details, and there's issues, bugs. So they would, report to us and we'll try to solve those together with the clients.
If someone wanted to work in Singapore as a software engineer, like maybe
Yeah.
someone in your role, do you think they need to speak a certain language? I mean, English is the main language in Singapore, but what
Mhm.
skills do you
Yeah.
think that they would
I mean,
need?
if you're foreigners, I think
Mhm.
English is perfectly fine. Sometimes Chinese help, but it's
Yeah.
not a necessary, and most Singaporean people speak English.
Or like you need to accrue some years of experience to be even considered for an EP, which is an employment pass. Have a lot of your engineering friends worked in their home country for a bit and then came to Singapore? Or like what have you seen software engineers like trajectory before they come to Singapore? Like I don't think I've ever seen like entry level software engineers come to Singapore and then just start working.
For foreigners,
Hmm.
first of all, I couldn't really think of anyone who is EP software engineer here. But at least for people who I know, they all have some previous experience, either in their home country or in different companies, I think, yes.
What do you think makes a good engineer to come to Singapore? Because Singapore is really strict on like
Yeah.
hiring requirements. Like I feel like they want to know a lot about you. Like even, what school you went to, your GPA, even though like I graduated maybe like years ago. Like what do you
Yeah.
think makes a really standout candidate for someone to work in Singapore?
I think Singapore government in that sense is very like uh quantitative. So I think they really look at your salary, they look at what school you graduated from, and then I think they also look for those like catchy keywords. Like
Oh.
for example, like if you're in data or AI, I think there's like a little preference over those roles. But all of these are actually like how they measure or how they judge is very qualitative and it's not really on a public notes. So like people don't really, it's very hard to find out what exactly that they're basing their judgment on. But I think, little more in-demand roles in the market.
That makes sense. And I guess right now for someone to be like a software engineer who's had like 3 to 5 years of experience, how do people do salary comparisons? Like where do you go online to look for like salaries?
I think like Glassdoor is
Mhm.
somewhere you kind of can look into it. And also depending on the company size, like some of the bigger company is quite transparent. I think one of the good ways to network and then find people within the industry or similar roles and then kind of make a personal connection to ask around like, hey, like I'm just trying to do this, and
Mhm.
if you know the market range or what would be a good, salary for me to go for and stuff like that, I think that could work.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think for me, like I kind of went in blind. Yeah, when I was
Oh,
like starting in, yeah, and then I think it didn't help that I worked for like a really small company who was like
yeah,
lowballing
yeah,
me.
yeah.
So for me, yeah, what I did, I think I went on like careersfuture.gov or something, and then it had like
Ah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
range.
Actually, the best place. Like they have to post the salary range for every role.
So I think that's like super helpful. Like for let's say like a software engineer who's had like 3 to 5 years of experience, what do you
Yeah.
think is like a good salary range? Like I think I had a
Ah,
lot of like people from Bay Area. I want to move
okay.
to Singapore, but I
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
Bay Area salary, and obviously they make like a lot
yeah.
of money
Yeah.
here. But then again, cost of living, like everything's adjusted. But I guess like
So
yeah, what do you think?
I think it really depends. I think so. So I think it's first of all, no, $1 is like 1.3 or 1.35
Yeah.
Singapore dollar.
Hmm.
But considering after tax payment actually is quite normal to compare them one to one because it's much lower tax here and then cost of living in some senses is lower here than SF.
Yeah.
So in just purely speaking on the Singapore dollar perspective, also I think there's two different approach. One is local company and one is like MNC, like
Hmm.
US tech company. Local company usually have a lot lower range of payment than US tech company. And then US tech company or like more bigger company like Shopee or Grab usually have similar competitiveness on salary. And
Hmm.
from 3 to 5 year experience, I think like 150K to 200K is a reasonable range that you can imagine or ask for in
Hmm.
Singapore as a software engineer. But that's also on a pretty higher side. I think if you're looking for experience and just trying to live outside, there's different perks coming with it. I think that will be something that you could ask for.
I think it is true. I think we get heavily taxed in California at least. So I think eventually it kind of does even out. Doing taxes in Singapore is a lot easier too. You have a lot of like government support around that. I think that's really insightful around like, what software engineers can expect if they're to like move to Singapore and like, yeah, like where to look for salary ranges. So we're going to talk more around like lifestyle and like living in Singapore. What do
Yeah.
you think is like for you? Because you've lived there how many years again?
This is my third year.
I don't know. I have a theory that like most people stay for like 2 to 3 years and then they leave, or they like
Yeah.
find a partner and then they stay forever, or for like 7 years and then they have kids in Singapore. We'll talk about that, the dating part later. But what's been like the best and the worst part of living in Singapore?
The best part is, I mean, I have a pretty good group of friends here now,
Hmm.
so I live with them. So it's like a college dorm life with everyone's making money, so you
Uh-huh.
can do more stuff together and travel together. You can go to nice place together. So I think that's one of the good part about being here. And I think career-wise also there's compared to like Korea, the career ladder or the salary range is actually comparatively higher than Korea, and tax rate is a lot lower, so I get to save a lot more on hands than previously. So I
Hmm.
think that's a pretty good part. The worst part is comparatively the market rent is pretty high, so compared to like other cities in Asia. So I think in that sense, there's a little more cost of living here, and drinking is very expensive too. Like, or eating out generally is very costly here. But other than that, I think everything's pretty good. Life is good.
I think it's like for you and your friends, you guys like go travel together a lot on the weekends and then you can like fly back immediately. Like that's such a nice like perk of living in Singapore
Yeah.
because you're like a focal
Yeah.
point to all these like Southeast Asian countries. I will say like rent is so expensive. I used to live in like a condo, it was like 2 bedroom, one bath. And then
Yeah.
our COVID price is like 2,800 for COVID
Yeah.
prices. And then now
Yeah.
I looked online, it's like 5,000 for 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
I wasn't even living in like the nice, like really nice downtown place. I was living near like Farrer Park.
I can't really complain because I got a pretty good deal with my current place. We rented a whole house, like 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom.
Mhm.
Um, we're paying 4K, and
Oh, that's
then
really good. Yeah.
yeah. So I can't really complain, but still could
Yeah.
always be better.
Do you think that you'll like end up living there long term, or will you move back to South Korea? Because I feel like a lot of foreigners, including
Yeah.
myself, had the
Yeah. Yeah.
same issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what would you be waiting for to make that decision? Is it love? I'm just kidding.
I'm not sure yet. I'm
Mm,
still I'm still thinking. At the moment, I'm quite enjoying my current stage of life, and I'm just exploring and trying to understand myself and the world. And but I think long time long I could also see myself settling in long term. Also, I could see myself moving back to Korea. I think it really depends, maybe my future partner or maybe different career opportunity. I could also see myself moving to like Europe. So
mm.
I I have no idea what's gonna happen. But definitely it's one of the place that I would consider like settling long term as well.
I guess it's
Yeah.
a hard decision because I think a lot of your decisions will be based on like if you want to have a family, if you want to continue like exploring. There's like so many factors to it.
Yep.
Do you think you're a different person though? Like from when you were back
From
in Korea? Like, are you a
yeah.
different person in Singapore than who you are in Korea? Because I feel like people like even I shift. Like I feel like my personality or like my
Yeah.
persona changes when I'm in different countries.
I think there's difference because the people that I talk to and communicate is different compared to Korea and here. And I
Mhm.
mean, for me, obviously, there's like different language. So in Korea, I'll talk in Korean, and here I'll talk in English, which also brings out different tones and personality of me in some senses. And also, I have a lot more old friends and families in Korea, and then here it's a lot more, kind of same age, same whom we met in Singapore and stuff. So in that sense, there's little difference, but it's me, just part of me that are presented in different ways.
Oh, I was gonna ask about the dating scene in Singapore, but
So I myself is like very new to dating scenes. And like, I used to just meet everyone in my church small group. And, from what I've collected information and from my scene, the market size and pool is quite small, especially if you're like expats and foreigners in Singapore. So
yeah.
basically a lot of time you get matched with same people with your peers. For example, if you have a dude friend, like, we would kind of see same person sometimes even get the same match. So in that sense it's kind of limiting, but also it's very refreshing every couple or 3 years. So as you said, like, every 2 or 3 years, like people kind of come and go. So like new batch kind of comes in and then, changes of people going around, I think here.
Yeah, but some people can't wait 3 years to find the love of their life. Or like they'll like go
But
travel and then maybe
But
try
if
to
you
break
think
up that.
about it, like 3 years doesn't happen like every 3 years, some people
Um,
come early, some people leave. So like there's always a little bit of new people coming in, always a little bit of, old people going back. So
mm,
it's great that there's like great diversity of people and cultures that you can see or, meet. But also if you are looking for a specific niche or specific like characteristic of people, I mean, there's always very limiting number of people that you can meet on.
I guess it works in different ways. You never know what will
Yeah,
happen, right? Like you might be
it
leaving
all.
Singapore and then you find someone that you like on the plane. And people still use like dating apps, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, I think a lot of people use dating apps. I mean, people who use think a lot of people use dating apps because that's the only thing you know.
that's the only way to meet. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like people in Singapore are so friendly. Like everyone kind of just like hangs out with each other. Like they're so open to meeting new people.
I think that also has a little different tone depending on like if you're expats or locals, because I think a lot of locals actually kind of grew up with same peers of friends since they were little, and then they go to same uni, they go to same high school, so
Mhm.
there's like a pretty strong bond already. But like for a lot of expats, they come in, they need to find new friends, new communities, so like a lot of time they're super open to hang out, get to know each other, get to make new friends and stuff.
Like circles are like very, very friendly, or like they're very open to like hanging out with one another. It's like, do you know this person? I know this person. For the last like fun question, what is your favorite Singlish word to say?
So
And what does it mean?
actually,
Okay
I
lah.
yeah, I don't know much about English, but like I learned like quite recently a new word that I didn't know.
I hope it's not a
It's
cuss
called
word. I'm just kidding.
no, wala way.
Oh yeah, voila.
So apparently wala way is like oh my gosh or like wow, yeah, that's a cool word. I
Oh,
like
that's a
it.
good one. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay. If anyone wants to connect with you or
Yeah.
like hang out with you in Singapore, what's the best way for
Yeah.
them to do that?
I mean, they can hit me up on LinkedIn,
Mm.
and I'm usually quite fast on replying on LinkedIn, and I'm always open for a coffee chat or, or hang out or anything. And then a lot of time I like host gathering with my friends if anyone's interested.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yes, I will link your LinkedIn in the captions below. So anyone interested in talking to Jake, you can feel free to DM him and maybe see him in Singapore. But treat him to a cup of kopi or yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Thanks, Jake.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for today.